Hello everyone. I have some pretty cool something pretty cool to show you. I've been working on a new implementation, a graphical implementation of the signal. Basically because what like the first iteration, it's kind of like trying to reflect how the signal looks in code. But in this time around, it's rather reflecting how the execution actually runs. And I think that perspective gives a lot more benefits. I've also changed like the uh, what do you call it, like the graphical concept. So now instead of having like these groupings with labels and stuff, everything is like a card. So let me just dive right into this. What you see here is like a props card. Um, so it's like an item in a list, and it has and it only appears if there's actually props there. So it saves up some space if there's no props in the signal. And you can click it, of course, and look at it. And then we have an action card, and an action card is by default collapsed, which means that you only see the name of the action, and then you get a hint if there's a mutation or a provider that has run inside that action. And when I click it, we see the contents. And this would also show any provider execution and if it returns some output. And actually, if it returns some output, that would also be indicated up here. Okay, so this is a very simple signal with only one action. So let's move to a different signal. Here we see that we have two actions running, and we actually see a hint that this happens in a sequence. So from top down, you see a linear execution with these cards, and from the left to the right, you see the sequence composition. So, and this is actually quite cool, and we'll see this in the next signal. But the point here is that we see that these two actions happens within this sequence. Okay, so when I now move to the last signal here, we see a much more complex signal, where we also have a path card. So we see that we run a when operator, it was false. It fired up a sequence, which started with a sequence called global URL actions, which had some actions within it, and ended with the operator equals to the path otherwise. And then within the sequence, we moved on to another action, which led to a path, and then it continues with other actions. Now, the thing is that when I scroll now, you will see that the name of the sequence actually follows. So when I scroll far down here, we can see that, for example, here, when we get to this operator when checking for the user, and that's true, we can see that these actions are actually composed into an initial sequence, which is composed, which has another sequence composed into it, which is composed by the authenticate sequence, which has another sequence, and then the set user sequence. So you get, I think, to me this makes a ton of sense, because this is what has been so difficult to read of the current signal graphical implementation, is this composition of the sequences. But now you will always see the current action you're looking at, what is it actually part of. And again, you don't see like alternate paths not taken down, because you don't really care about that, I think. We could, of course, allow you to expand the path to see the alternatives, but yeah, I think this just makes a ton more sense. And of course, what's missing here now is, yeah, so we see, I want to show this as well. I spent a ton of time on this, making the names follow. Now you see it follows, and then it stops the global URL actions, and then it continues back. Anyways, so I want to have some shortcuts here, so you can easily kind of like toggle what cards to show. So for example, there should be a shortcut for not showing the props cards at all, a shortcut for expanding all the actions. Also, when you search for a path, it should automatically expand the action, and stuff like that. But yeah, this is how it looks now, and I'll continue working on it. I know people hate changes, but I don't think the current visual representation of a signal execution is the best way to go. So I really want to push this through, even though you might be a little bit skeptical, because it's just a new iteration, it's a new perspective, and we just have to iterate on this to figure out the best way to do this. But again, I really like it, and I think it's a good iteration. Okay, hope you like it. Bye bye.